Rome's victory over Carthage in the Third Punic War, 149 to 146 BCE, was a pivotal moment in the history of the Mediterranean. The destruction of Carthage not only eliminated Rome's most formidable rival but also marked the beginning of a new phase in Roman expansion, the transformation from a regional power into a sprawling empire. After defeating Carthage, Rome was free to expand its influence, conquer new territories, and establish control over the Mediterranean world, which it would eventually call Mare Nostrum, RC. This period of rapid imperial growth laid the foundation for the Roman Empire, which would dominate the ancient world for centuries. Chapter 1. The Aftermath of the Punic Wars. The Third Punic War ended in 146 BCE with the complete destruction of Carthage, a city that had once been the dominant maritime power of the Western Mediterranean. Carthage's territory in North Africa was annexed by Rome and became the Roman province of Africa. This newly acquired territory was not only agriculturally rich but strategically located, giving Rome direct control over a key region of the Mediterranean. The fertile plains of Tunisia, once cultivated by Carthaginians, became the breadbasket of Rome, producing vast quantities of grain, olives, and other vital resources for the growing Roman state. The destruction of Carthage also signaled Rome's unchallenged dominance over the Western Mediterranean. With Carthage gone, there were no significant powers left to oppose Roman expansion in the region. This victory enabled Rome to shift its focus from the west to the east, where it would soon confront the Hellenistic kingdoms of Greece, Macedonia, and Asia Minor. Chapter 2. Rome's expansion into the Eastern Mediterranean. While the Punic Wars were being fought in the west, Rome had already begun to expand its influence into the Eastern Mediterranean. The Eastern Mediterranean was dominated by the successor states of Alexander the Great's empire, known as the Hellenistic kingdoms, which included Macedonia, the Seleucid Empire, and Ptolemaic Egypt. These kingdoms had grown increasingly unstable, and Rome saw an opportunity to extend its influence into this wealthy and culturally rich region. In 168 BCE, just before the Third Punic War, Rome had already defeated Macedon at the Battle of Pydna, effectively ending the Macedonian monarchy and bringing Greece under Roman control. After the destruction of Carthage, Rome accelerated its campaigns in the east, targeting the weakened Hellenistic kingdoms. By the mid-2nd century BCE, much of Greece had been annexed by Rome, either through direct conquest or as client states. The Achaean War in 146 BCE, coinciding with the final destruction of Carthage, saw the defeat of the Greek city-state of Corinth. The city was sacked by the Roman general Lucius Mummius, and Corinth's destruction marked the end of Greek independence. Greece was incorporated into the Roman province of Achaea, completing Rome's dominance over the Greek world. Chapter 3. Rome's provincial system and administrative control. As Rome's empire expanded, the governance of its newly conquered territories became increasingly complex. Rome developed a system of provinces, each administered by a governor appointed by the Senate. These governors were responsible for maintaining order, collecting taxes, and ensuring the loyalty of the provincial populations. Some provinces were directly annexed, such as Africa, Sicily, and Hispania, Spain, while others, like Greece, were governed through a mix of direct control and client-state relationships. The Roman provincial system was often exploitative. Many Roman governors, particularly in the early stages of expansion, were corrupt and focused on personal enrichment. Provincial taxation was usually harsh, and publicani, private tax collectors, often extorted more money from the population than was legally required. However, the wealth extracted from the provinces fueled Rome's military campaigns and funded public works, temples, and monuments in the capital. Despite the corruption, Roman rule brought significant infrastructure improvements to many of its provinces. The construction of Roman roads, aqueducts, and cities helped integrate the empire and fostered economic growth. Roman law, language, and culture gradually spread throughout the provinces, laying the foundations for what would later become the Roman Empire's vast and unified territory. Chapter 4. The Conquest of Hispania. One of Rome's most challenging and protracted military campaigns after the Punic Wars was the conquest of Hispania, modern-day Spain, and Portugal. The Carthaginians had controlled parts of Hispania before the Second Punic War, but but Rome had gradually taken over the region as a result of its victory over Carthage. However, the full pacification of Hispania would take nearly 2 centuries. The native tribes of Hispania, particularly the Lusitanians and the Celtiberians, fiercely resisted Roman rule. Guerrilla warfare in the rugged mountains of Hispania made it difficult for Roman legions to secure control. Notably, the Lusitanian leader Viriathus waged a long and effective campaign against Roman forces in the 2nd century BCE. His guerrilla tactics and ambushes inflicted significant losses on the Romans, and it wasn't until his assassination in 139 BCE that Roman forces began to gain the upper hand. By the end of the 1st century BCE, Rome had finally subdued the last of the Iberian tribes, and Hispania was fully integrated into the Roman provincial system. The region became a crucial part of the Roman Empire, contributing significant resources, especially silver from its mines and agricultural products. Chapter 5. The Transformation of Rome's Military. The period after Rome's victory over Carthage also saw major transformations in the Roman military. The long wars against Carthage and the subsequent campaigns in the east and west had changed the nature of Roman warfare. The old system of citizen soldiers, who served only during the campaigning season and then returned to their farms, was no longer sufficient to sustain Rome's growing empire. Under generals like Gaius Marius, the Roman army was reformed into a professional fighting force. Marius, elected consul in 107 BCE, opened the legions to the landless poor, who were recruited as full-time soldiers. These soldiers, known as Marius mules due to the heavy loads they carried, were paid and provided for by the state, and they served in the army for long periods. This shift created a standing army that was loyal to its generals rather than the Roman state, which would later have profound implications for Roman politics. These reforms made Rome's military more effective in its campaigns, but they also contributed to the rise of powerful generals, such as Julius Caesar and Pompey, who would use their armies to challenge the authority of the Senate. The professionalization of the army helped Rome maintain control over its vast territories, but also set the stage for the internal conflicts that would lead to the fall of the Roman Republic. Chapter 6. Rome's expansion into North Africa and beyond. The conquest of Carthage's territories in North Africa provided Rome with fertile lands and strategic control over the western Mediterranean, but it also opened the door to further expansion into the African continent. Rome soon became involved in the affairs of Numidia, a kingdom in modern-day Algeria, and Mauritania, modern Morocco. The Roman Senate sought to ensure that these regions remained stable and aligned with Roman interests, using diplomacy, alliances, and military force when necessary. By the 1st century BCE, Rome had also extended its influence into the eastern Mediterranean. Following the defeat of Mithridates VI of Pontus in the Mithridatic Wars, 88 to 63 BCE, Rome secured control over large parts of Asia Minor. The defeat of the Seleucid Empire in the east, combined with the eventual annexation of Ptolemaic Egypt in 30 BCE, following the deaths of Cleopatra and Mark Antony, gave Rome complete dominance over the eastern Mediterranean. With control of North Africa, the Mediterranean islands, Greece, Spain, and Asia Minor, Rome had become a vast empire stretching from the Atlantic Ocean to the borders of Persia and from Britain to Egypt. The destruction of Carthage was the catalyst that allowed Rome to secure its dominance, but it was the subsequent military conquests and political maneuvering that turned Rome into the most powerful state in the ancient world. Chapter 7. The Impact on Roman Society and Politics. Rome's rapid expansion after the destruction of Carthage had profound effects on its society and political structure. The influx of wealth from newly conquered territories, particularly from Greece and Asia Minor, led to the rise of a new class of wealthy elites, known as the equestrians or knights. These individuals profited from the spoils of war, control of provincial taxes, and the exploitation of resources in the provinces. The gap between the wealthy elite and the urban poor in Rome widened dramatically during this period. Displaced small farmers, whose lands had been bought by wealthy landowners or ruined by long military campaigns, flocked to the city of Rome in search of work. Many of these landless citizens were recruited into the Roman army, as the new professional legions relied on the poor for manpower. The wealth and power concentrated in the hands of the Roman elite also led to increasing corruption and political instability. Powerful, By the end of the 1st century BCE, Rome had finally subdued the last of the Iberian tribes, and Hispania was fully integrated into the Roman provincial system. The region became a crucial part of the Roman Empire, contributing significant resources, especially silver from its mines and agricultural products.